If you want it, you can have it. All you gotta do is just reach out and grab it. If you want it, you can have it. All you got to do is just reach right out and grab it. Step out up, step into your power.
I would love to talk to Ray LaMontagne about how this song came about. Welcome to another episode of Billified or I should say Billightenment, that we do on Billified on this snowy Saturday, kind of a bonus. And Shelia Tillich, who's been on twice now. This is your third time, Shelia. You keep coming back. Yep. We must be doing something right.
I love it.
Well, I'm glad you love it. But here, this will lead into some different things. So I woke up yesterday and I noticed I had like redness in the corner of my eye. And then last night before I went to bed, I noticed that I had a really dark red splotch on the just below the outer part of your color part of your eye, right? Whatever that is. Yeah. But is that the pupil? I thought the pupil was the dark part. Yeah. So I'm looking down. The iris. And I was thinking to myself, ooh, I wonder if I got pink eye. And I'm going to be around my parents, who my dad is kind of compromised health. My sister lives with Lyme disease, and she does all kinds of things to try to, keep herself going. Yeah. She's had it since she was 18 and really at times been very crippling and compromising her health. So I thought, I don't want to bring anything. So I went to urgent care, and I had contacted Sheila and said, listen, I don't know. I got a 9:30 and then I'm going to try to sneak in there in between. And it all worked out. I get in there and they look at it and they go, no, it's just a hemorrhage in your eye. And so you sort of feel dumb, right? But at the same time, I thought, I don't want to be bringing anything to anybody. And I didn't want to bring it to you. I didn't want to. Exactly. Sheila's response was, which I absolutely loved, I just won't hug you and I'll use hand sanitizer. Yeah. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. Okay, that's good. So, but I didn't want to. And then I'm thinking, like, I don't know what I'm going to do for Christmas if I don't go to my sister's. What am I going to do for my son and all that? So then they say it's just an eye hemorrhage. And I thought, okay. And the guy's like, I said, stress? And he said, it could be a sneeze. He goes, they're benign and then blah, blah, blah. And I'm thinking, you just took my blood pressure and my pulse. They didn't tell me what it was. And then when they said, do you want the paperwork that'll have it? I said, no, because it just, because it just becomes cluttered, right? It's just, stress. Yeah. So I don't even know what it was, but my pulse is usually around 55. Sometimes. Yeah.
Whoa, that's low.
Yeah. Sometimes it's usually resting rate is 55. I've did an EKG once and I really went into a meditative thing and I set off an alarm because it got down to 43 beats a minute.
Are you alive?
Yeah.
Go blue.
Isn't that nuts? And I don't know what my blood pressure was, but I know that lately I have been stressed. And it's bad. And I am I'll call it the human part of our experience, because I know all the things and I say all the things. And when I say all the things like let it go and, relax into the universe and let it be and try to keep that better feeling thoughts, because I think our feelings are our guide and our emotions are our guide to, how we're doing and where we're vibrating and all this stuff. Yeah. And I was like, oh, man, what am I doing wrong? And I told Sheila that I often look for patterns in life. I look for it with people and I look for it with different things. And I'll just as an example, if somebody gets accused of something, I'll go, I know this person and I haven't seen that pattern. I'm not saying that they're not guilty, but I would say, well, we need to kind of look into this, right? So that those are the things how I live, and I've noticed a pattern around money with me that sometimes I just get, and I've noticed like my whole life, there's always been, you're right down to the wire, buddy. You know what I mean? You're right down to the wire, and it's always worked out. And I've had a nice life. I've done tremendous things. I write, everything's always worked out, but I go, how do I fix that? How do I unblock that? I do think that there's a blockage. And it's funny because I want to try to teach my son, but at his own pace with different things. So, I don't mean to. A lot of thoughts in my head right now. So I just let me just share this with you. Aaron Rodgers is a quarterback in the NFL. Are you familiar with Aaron Rodgers?
No.
Okay. So he has sort of been vilified at times. And I noticed this Netflix series called Aaron Rodgers Enigma. And in it, it does this whole thing about how he grew up and all these things till winning the Super Bowl. And he said after that, it was like, now what? And he said, I always wanted to be so much, I wanted to be more than. So he went on this spiritual journey, and he goes down to Costa Rica and does ayahuasca ceremonies. And then he did a darkness retreat, and he gets, I mean, they blast him, right? And then he gets traded to the Jets. And last year, their opening game was against the Buffalo Bills. And 4 plays into the thing, here comes 39-year-old, 4-time NFL MVP, Aaron Rodgers, Super Bowl winner, only once, and he blows out his Achilles on the 4th play, out for the season. But determined that if they make it to the playoffs, he's going to be back. He works so hard, and it shows him working and stretching and going back. And then he went into it. He had done a darkness retreat at one point, and all these things. And so my son walks in and he says to me, I always think that Aaron Rodgers may be a little bit misunderstood. And I said, yeah, I think he is. And he said, but he does some of this weird stuff, like that. And I said, yeah, but I sort of do too. I mean, I haven't done ayahuasca ceremonies, but I said, I believe a lot of the similar things of him. And he's like, and he goes, oh, like the lady that you've had on? I go, yeah, Sheila. He goes, yeah. I said, do you know that your grandmother is a level 3 Reiki healer? And he went, what? And I said, yeah. He goes, I don't know about all this stuff, Dad. I said, oh, it's okay. And he started having kind of for a 14-year-old, what I would say was a deeper philosophical discussion about this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And I said to him, well, you don't have to. I said, I certainly would like to guide you to be thinking and be open. That's all I'm asking. Just try to be open about it. But I'm not going to tell you what to do or how to live. Because he even in a prior conversation said to me, you're really loose with me. And I'm like, I didn't know what that meant.
What do you mean by loose?
Well,
Open.
but not strict. I said to him, what do you mean by that? I said, look, you had a buddy over. You guys went out when I told you not to. And I got up and I go into your bedroom and you've got balls and things under the blankets to make it look like you're there. And you come walking back to get something. And I said, get that kid back here. He's going home.
Yeah.
And he goes, yeah, but you never really brought it up again. You don't. I go, why? One and done. I don't need to yell at you. I don't need to bring things up. I go, I have a father who still brings up everything I did. I'm 53. He still brings it up. Like, hey, remember when blah, blah, blah? Remember that girl you dated? Blah, blah. Like all the time. I said, I don't want that for you. I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
And I said, if we can learn and move forward, that's it. Repeat it. And well, things will get tighter. But until then, we're fine. Yeah. And he's like, yeah, but you let me cook my weird stuff. I go, yeah. I think it's good for your brain. I don't appreciate the mess, and I don't appreciate your lame attempt of cleaning up. But that we'll work on that.
Yeah,
and that's it. So, but to that point, I call my mother on the way here, and my mother answers the phone, and I hear another voice, and I hear something else, and they're like, "Are you going to answer it?" And she's like, they go, well, then hit the red button. And I'm going, what is going on? And I thought my mother's going, I can't see it. I don't know where it is. I thought, oh my God, my mom, something struck. No, she is at a healing ceremony. She's at a sound healing, and she was helping them set up early because she called me back. And I said, I got worried that you were in the emergency room and you stroked out and couldn't remember how to use your phone or something. And she said, no, I'm at a healing and we're going to do sound healing. And I got here early to help set up. And she said, I couldn't, whatever. So all this stuff has been around. My mother never really talked to us about any of this stuff. And she was brought up Irish Catholic to the point where I think I told you my grandfather didn't talk to us when we switched Protestant. Yeah. And she does all these things. and she still goes to church. She says she can blend it all together for her, and
Right.
it makes her feel good.
I'm going tonight to a ceremony.
Yeah. To a
Sissy
healing
Inst-
ceremony?
A Sissy Institute.
Okay.
All right. So we're going to have a gathering. Yeah. Spiritual people get together too.
Yes.
It's all about love and being together.
Right. So all this stuff is I'm telling you and I'm kind of rambling here. It all sort of tied together, and I go, how weird is this? That the stress, and you're seeing Shelia, who is a healer, and you can go to SheliaTillich.com, TILLICH, and you set up an appointment and go and find out for yourself how wonderful this stuff is. And I just thought, and there's my mom doing it, and here's my son asking about it. And I watched Aaron Rodgers, who's been on this thing, and it gave me a greater understanding and honestly an appreciation for what that guy is trying to do and trying to figure out. And I know you want to talk about a specific thing, that we're not alone. We're not alone, and which is, I think, should be a comforting thing for people.
Very comforting. Excuse me. Very comforting. What I want to share about is I am the only one left out of my family, 8 kids,
Okay.
2 parents. So there was 10 of us. And
Do you feel like a winner?
Yeah, I'm the one.
I know that
last
sounds
one
funny,
standing. But I knew it. But that's my role.
What do you mean you knew it?
Huh?
How did you know it?
I felt it.
Yeah.
And so what I shared before and a couple of the other ones, I've always been able to communicate with angels.
Yes.
All right. And angels always been divine, messengers of God. And I was always told by the Catholic Church, especially the nuns, that I couldn't. And that was, blasphemy, and only the priest and God can connect with the angels type thing. And so I hid it for a long time, but I always knew. And everything that I had gone through in my life, I felt like I had warm arms around me.
Mhm.
All right. And they were the angels. They were the angels connecting with me. So when we talk about angels, you talk about a higher dimension,
Mhm.
all right, and higher frequency.
Mhm.
And so we're in that higher frequency now. And my whole life has been building up to do what I do now. So you were talking about programming and belief systems.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
And, your mother doing, Reiki and energy work, and your, different other people. That's the energy that's here now. All right. And I had many, many siblings that I'm very close with, more closer with all of them in death than I was. Well, I was close with many of them, but the one brother, his name is Bob, and he had passed away in 2019. Now, he was very spiritual. We shared our lives together, and we did a lot of things with our recovery people. And because he's gone, I can say his name, just Bob. And however, he had a lot of anger inside. And so we talked about fear, and you talked about lack of money wise.
Mhm.
Right. So that's natural. That is society.
But the weird thing, and I'm sorry to interrupt, and
No,
I want
go
you
for
to stay on track here.
Go.
It didn't matter how much money I made.
Exactly.
It was always there. I made, without sounding too much like a jerk, I made a lot of money.
Yeah.
I made a lot of money. And I still would go, there's
Well-
nothing there. But I will tell you the other thing that I think is, I never did a budget. I just went about things, and it was always there. And so I never really worried.
Yeah.
And then, but there are times where I've gone, oh man, I really need to get my shit together. And I don't. And I just keep kind of going.
Well,
and
that's
it seems to work.
guilt. You been told you need to do this, but many of us are awakening up that there's more than things that we've been taught, and there's more important things.
Yeah.
Like that football player.
Yeah.
Went on a spiritual journey.
Yep.
And he went on ayahuasca, and plant medicine is good to a point. And there's a whole bunch of different ways of getting in touch with the higher power inside.
Mhm.
All right. So when you did the song with power.
Yeah.
That's what it's all about, is that each and every one of us have power inside, but we've been told that we don't. We've been told that we need to do this, this, and this, or we're not going to be with God or whatever, or be successful or approved or liked. And as we have been growing, things have been evolving. And that's what's here now, is the evolving of who we are as souls. We have the power. But a lot of people are still stuck in the fear. And that's exactly what I do. I help them with the fear. And I know it because I've gone through it. And so my brother was very stuck in the fear, and he was a staunch Marine. He was a staff sergeant Marine. It was his way or the highway.
Yeah, that was one tough dude.
Oh my gosh. And I love that of him. And I'm very, very proud of him. However, we also had a lot of dysfunctional stuff that we grew up with, having both alcoholic parents.
Okay.
And so with that, we learned how to live and not look at things that, taking care of ourselves. If I don't do this, this is what's going to happen. So he lived in a lot of fear. And before he died, about 8 months before he died, we were estranged, and we call it our timeout. And all through our lives, we've been estranged like 3 times. And why we were estranged is that we were at one of the Mexican restaurants, and we were talking about my will, about being an executor and stuff like that. And then he turned it around of people that he didn't want at his funeral. And he was screaming at me in the restaurant. Exactly.
Sorry, that's sort of funny.
It's funny because
how do you don't have any control on what? Okay.
No, but his anger was still there, and he didn't want certain people that he was angry at, and he cut out of his life because they were telling him about his anger. All right. And he didn't want to listen to it. Just like I had told him many times about his anger. Yeah. But it's okay. It's like, it doesn't matter if you're together or not. You're still in each other's lives, in your soul. And that's why I say I'm very, very close to them after death. He's very close with me now and tell me that I was right on everything. But that's another story. So what happened was 8 months went by and he had a massive heart attack. And he was brain dead. Almost brain dead. He had less than 20% of his brain left for 5 days. Mm-hmm. And during that time, I was his advocate to communicate with the health professionals. And they were also my old coworkers. And he also was the archivist for the hospital. So he was known. And so during that time, so many beautiful things happened. And when it happened, his son called me from New Orleans and said, "You got to go to Dad real quick." And I was the healthcare proxy ever since he was in the Marines in the 70s. Mm-hmm. So we were always that close. However, when we got to the hospital, all of our friends were there, and the doctor told us that he had less than 20% of his brain left, which I knew because I was with him, and I've taken care of a lot of patients like that when I used to work at RGH. And so what happened was, after they told us that, all of my family members came to me, and I was in shock. I had my friends around me and his neighbors. His son wasn't, because he was down in New Orleans. And I said to myself, "Oh, here we go again." Because I've helped a lot of my siblings pass over, mm-hmm. As a hospice caregiver since in the 90s. And then also what I do in the metaphysical world and what I did at the hospital. And so they came to me and I said, "Why? Another one, why?" And all of my loved ones, all my angels and also my family members came to me and they said, "This is what you're here to do." And then I knew. I already knew that I was going to be the last one left. I already knew that. But also it confirmed me. And all of a sudden, my brother, the one, Bob, I'm talking about, his face came right before me. And he wasn't angry because I can see, I can feel, and I know, and I can hear. And he says, "I'm not coming back. You know what to do. I'll be calling the shots." And I'm standing right beside you. And that's exactly what happened for those 5 days. One of his friends, who was actually his sponsor, was a retired hospice nurse. And if I wasn't at the hospital, he was at the hospital. And a lot of the stuff orchestrated that when a person has that type of stuff, there's different procedures that you do to try to keep them alive and find out how much damage was done. But he was going to control it. And he did, with the different things that happened to him. So it took 5 days before he actually passed. I was with him. I was the only one with him. And I'm very, very grateful for what I do. I really am. And so there's a whole bunch more stuff. But the key here is the day of his service. All right. One of his friends, who was, to do what you do, kind of a disc jockey, he actually kind of led everything. I mean, I'm a minister too, but it was kind of personal stuff. And then I was the last one to spoke. And before he went to the service, I asked Bob, "What do you want me to say?" Because I give the eulogies all the time. And he says, "Tell everybody what I told you when I came to you." I said, "You got to be kidding me. A lot of those people don't even know that I talk to angels and I have this ability." He says, "They have to know that it's all about love. The fear's gone. Those are just things that you learn to do to learn these lessons. And we talked about that before.
Yeah.
About the lessons that you
Yeah.
learn and the roles that you play in each of your lifetimes and why you're here. And so that's what I did. I kind of shared, a lot of them knew who I was, of course. They were all, close friends and stuff like that. And also people that he worked with at the hospital, but he worked for Strong at the time.
Mhm.
And so I told that, he had a lot of stuff inside of him. And he wanted everybody to know that he loves you all and that it's really all about fear. About love. Let go of all the fear, the anger, all those emotions that you have with your loved ones is because when you cross over, it's about love. Everything's gone.
Yeah.
Everything's gone.
Sheila, I have always, not always, but I have come to believe that the resistance is gone. So, which would be fear, correct?
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, it's the things we put in, like, why don't we do something? Why don't we do this? Why don't we do that? And it's fear. Or I guess, because I always thought, man, I'm not really afraid of anything. But I am.
But you are. But you know what? It's as we said before, it's good fear and bad fear, and it's being smart, teaching.
Did I ever tell you about what happened here a couple of weeks ago?
I don't know. Tell me,
If I remember, just to give you a perspective on maybe my interpretation of what fear would be or not. So I don't normally lock the door. It's just a room. It's a studio, right? It's just the studio, and I have a front window that'll point out to the sidewalk and things. And there's a Chinese restaurant on this, and it's nice. I like it. I love watching people walk by.
Yeah.
And sometimes people stop in and they'll talk to me about the podcast and things. And there was a gentleman who was pacing back and forth in front, and then all of a sudden just opens the door and screams very loudly, "Take a picture, motherfucker," or something like that. So I'm sitting here and what is my reaction? I started laughing because it was funny to me. I'm like, this is nuts. So the guy disappears, and then all of a sudden he comes back and he opens the door and he starts screaming again and accusing me of having been with his girlfriend.
Oh, no.
And I never was. But I didn't even know who he was talking about. And then the girl walks up and I go, "Oh, I do know her, but I've never." So he's like, "Yeah." And so then he lunges at me and he's doing this. So I stood up and I just started screaming, "Get the blank out of here.
Yeah.
I will kill you. Do never come in here again.
Yeah,
This is where I do business. You don't come in here and do that sort of stuff."
Yeah.
And then I was telling somebody, they go, You're insane. Like, why wouldn't you have and I didn't lock the door again. I didn't even think to. I just I walked out. I mean, I walked right out there and he's going, "I'll knock you out." And he's mentioned another friend of mine that he's going to knock out and all this stuff. And I'm going, okay. and he walked away. Clearly having a bad day, I would say. That's not normal. But whatever. And his girlfriend was standing in the window giving me the cut sign to cut it out. Now, normally that would be something that you should be afraid of, right? Fight or flight.
Yeah.
And why, I don't know. And there are things like fight or flight that would scare me, right? But I always get to the point where I'm like, well, let's see what happens. And I've had this awful saying, and I hope this doesn't offend you. And I don't know if you
I've heard it all.
let these words out on.
I'm 70 years old.
I know. I understand, but I don't know if you want this. Like, if I were to share this video with you or something.
There's so many.
But I was always like, fuck it, jump. Let's see what happens. Right? Fuck it and jump. Because what's the worst that's going to happen? So I haven't had, and that's only in things like getting a race car and how fast can we get around the track, or let's go on a drag strip. Those are things that'll scare you. But I love the adrenaline and how I feel after I've done 140 miles an hour and a quarter mile. It's amazing. It's an unbelievable feeling. But that's not really fear of not going through with a project because I don't know what's going to happen, or I don't know what the next step is. And instead of trying to find it, you just go, it's easier not to. Which I think that's the real fear. And this other stuff is sort of like, it's sort of like a challenge. Would that, I don't know if I'm saying it correctly. I don't know if I am to you or not.
You are, but that's just being human. I mean, what happened was, yeah, I would stand up and say whatever, but as you evolve, you can see the anger of coming towards you, and then you can choose to be part of it or not.
Yeah.
But it's hard. It's hard being human. It's hard going through those emotions,
Yes.
and also things that you've done in the past you can't unchange. And a lot of times, stuff that we do, all right, we still feel guilty for, and there's nothing we can do to change it. But we can go from here on, like people who are very scared to die.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
They're so scared to die, and because they've been told that they're going to go to hell. All right. And that this is what's going to happen. And a lot of times it's older people that keep hanging on.
Yeah,
And a lot of people say, why? It's because they're fear.
yeah.
They haven't, a lot of times the loved ones will come to them.
Yeah.
Right. And then they will start to connect with the loved ones, that type of stuff. They'll let go of the fear. But the human way of living is hold on to that fear, is because that's what you've been programmed to know. Now the energy is different, and now you meet people like me in the energy field who are coming forward to say, this isn't spooky, this isn't bad, this is good.
Yeah. Okay. You hit on such a thing for me. The story I told was to say most people would be scared in that situation, right? And my thing was like, this is nothing. I know that this guy's just he's not after me. He's mad about something else. It has nothing to do with anything.
Everybody's anger comes out.
But I'm going to
sideways.
push you out. I'm going to push you and your anger out my door. And I'm not going to come after you. I'm not going to lay hands on you. I'm not going to do anything.
Right.
And I don't think you are either. But I think that something's crazy and it doesn't involve me. And that's how I see a lot of things lately.
Yeah.
That's how I see a lot of stuff.
That's
I see
awakening.
I think with my kid where he says, you're loose with me. I can see what happens. I can see when I need to not be loose, and I can see when I can be loose. And it's a total change for me over the past couple of years. And then I also see things where, like right now, I have talked to people about a new project, and they're sending me things like a deck, and this is how you would do it, and this is how we pitch it, and can we sell it to Netflix or whatever. And I'm like, I almost shut down. Like but it's not fear. I wouldn't say I'm scared, but I am, because I'm not stepping into it and doing it. Do you know? Okay,
so that's your awakening. All right. And then you have the fear of not succeeding of what you've always done. And these people are, bringing all this, and only makes sense. And they say, well, why don't you do it? It only makes sense. But you're listening to your internal thermometer.
Yeah.
You're listening to your power inside. And there's no coincidence why I'm here. There's no coincidence is that this time in humanity is changing so rapidly, and it's going to get worse. It's going to get worse. But the thing is
what do you mean by worse?
Well, a lot of the stuff that's come out with being a lot of things becoming concealed. A lot of things are coming out. The truth is coming out. Well, there's more than that coming out. And what's happening is that they're playing upon a fear of, this is the agenda. This is what's going to happen. The conspiracy theory has been here for a long, long time. And the whistleblowers are starting to come out. It's not only in politics. It is about the whole world. That's why we're all connected to it, and we're all going through it. But what I want to tell your audience is that we're going to be okay. It has to come out for us to go forward. Now, with your situation, I can see you're understanding it. It's about, you don't have to behave that way.
No.
And you're learning to step in your power.
Yeah.
That's where the energy of your field, your electromagnetic field, is changing, because you're being connected with a powerful energy yourself, but also other people like me and other people like your mother and stuff like that. It's like, well, maybe they're right. Maybe this is true. And it's all about facing your fears and going beyond it.
Yeah, and the only reason I brought up the thing, because I think that's what we say is scary. the dog barking on the end of a chain, which is what I would equate this gentleman to, who came in here. That people see as fear. Where I think the real fear is, why aren't you doing something? What is holding you back? What's blocking you on this path to evolving? Why aren't you, whatever that is? Why are you avoiding something that you and it gnaws at you, and you know that it's there? You need to do this, but how, or what, or whatever?
Because being turned away, being not accepted.
Mm,
You have to do different. And a lot of people don't want to do different because they know they're going to lose a lot of people.
mm.
So think about that. People that have been brought up a certain way. And if you start doing different, you don't behave, then they say, well, I told you so.
Well,
And then you're going to feel worse again.
that's how Aaron Rodgers in this piece.
Exactly.
It says he doesn't talk to his family, and that's been a big thing. You see, at least in this docuseries, and it's 3 episodes, and I laid on the couch like a lump and watched all 3. They're about an hour each. I always worry that I'm wasting my time, but I don't think I did with this one.
Well, now think about that.
Yeah.
You're not wasting your time because you've been able to come and talk about it this time.
Yeah.
And to help your audience see that there's more to life than what you're seeing.
Well, what I was going to say is, he does not talk to family members who are so rigid, as he said, in their biblical belief, and he was so happy that he had different opportunities to sort of expand his thinking and expand his awareness of things and all this. And at one point, I think RFK Jr. asked him to be his vice presidential candidate, and he turned it down because he wanted to continue playing football. But that's all in the docuseries. But his whole thing was like, yeah, I don't talk to them much because there's too much. And he said, I'm not saying that there's ever a chance that I won't talk to them again. That's not true. I will.
Yeah.
And he said, I'm a reconciliation. Absolutely. He said, but right now it can't happen. Yeah. And I thought, wow, okay. But it was exactly what you were saying. Yeah. Exactly what you're saying, where some people will not want to be around you, or not want to deal with you, or think you're kooky or woo-woo or whatever. Exactly. And I, when you were saying things about loved ones come to us and help us cross over, right? I just remember, and this will lead me to something else that I will ask you. When my grandfather, I was 19 years old, and he was a New York City fireman, and like that big, man of the house. He was going to always do stuff, and he was toughing and puffing and all around. And my father it wasn't his father, it was my mom's dad. He always had a nickname for him. He called him the Flop, because he never sat down. Like, my grandmother would say something, and he's up and huffing and puffing and fixing and doing and doing and doing. So he's dying in the hospital with colon cancer and he was young by comparison to today. He was 69 years old, but he wouldn't have his prostate checked. He wouldn't have any.
Yeah, that's men's pride.
You got it.
Ego.
So
ego's fear, by the way.
Yep. And there's a lot of talk of ego in lot of talk of the death of ego in Aaron Rodgers docuseries. I almost want to watch it again now.
Exactly.
So he is dying, and like, to the point of always wanting to be helpful. I had done a triathlon. I was 19 down in Bear Mountain, and my bike chain broke as I was coming into the chutes. It all of a sudden just fell off the thing, whatever. And I remember coming by, I'll never forget it. And this woman blows past me, and this little kid goes, "Hey, mister, a girl's beating you," which I thought was the cutest thing in the world. So everybody must have told my grandfather, and I come see him. He goes, "Oh, Billy, when I get out of here, we'll fix that bike." Well, I'm like, yeah, I know you're not getting out of here. And then, like, the next day or something, he starts talking to the wall, basically. And he says, "Mom, not yet, Mom. Not right now. Not yet."
Yeah.
He goes, I see you, Mom. I see you, but not yet. Not yet. I got a little bit more, bit more. Yeah. And everybody said, it's the morphine talking, because he was in pain. It was the morphine talking. So I've always stuck with me that he was so, like, it calm, not freaked out. Not yet, Mom. Not yet. I got a little thing. So I don't know. I have no idea. So everybody said it was the morphine. I wrote it off to the morphine, but I always in the back of my head go, I'm not so sure. And then I've met somebody since who told me that sometimes people die and they don't know they're dead because they're so drugged up or they died so suddenly that they will sometimes attach to your human spirit because they don't realize they're dead, and that we have attachments. Do you believe this, or am I being nutty here?
Okay, so part of that was linear thinking, trying to make sense of it. I come from the frequency, the vibrational part, and I know, because I've lived it. And there's a couple other stories too, and I got to finish about my brother. But
I'm sorry.
No, that's all right. And spirit is there. Your loved ones are there. They're just in a different frequency.
Yes.
All right.
Right.
And when a person is towards the end, they're like halfway in and halfway out.
Yep.
So when I set up my brother was 5 days, he was handling everything. He was above his bed. I was talking to him. As soon as I seen him, he was above his head. And I knew it when I first went into the hospital. And so he was here in the physical body, but he really wasn't here. The spirit was above. And that's the same with our loved ones. They do come back for us and they are around. So why I wanted to continue is when I got the diagnosis from the doctor about my brother, his sponsor, Herb, who was as I said, a retired hospice worker. I was like kind of embarrassed because emotionally, he says, don't ever feel embarrassed for feeling your feelings, that's what I tell other people too. But he says, many cases I've had, I've always wondered that, and I've seen that, and I wondered myself, and I always knew that it was real. The spirit was real. They were here to come. And he says, I had this one person that he says, Herb, I love you. I love you. And he was almost ready to go. He says, but if you walk through my angel at the end of the bed one more time, I'm going to get up and cold cock you. And he told me, he says, I am so grateful for you. He says, I wish I had your abilities to be able to see. He said, but from then on, I respected the spirit. I respected when they were talking about it. And I know all my loved ones did the same. Mm-hmm. I know it. And the same with my older brother, when he died in 2012, he came to me, the night before he died, he came to me and I was at the hospital and he was so excited about a bunch of stuff. And then the next morning is when he passed. And he came to me when he died. And I was in IV services. I was taking my lunch. It was 1:28. And he says, Sheil, it's beautiful here. And I was in shock. And the nurses behind me, they were working on the computers. And I said, in my head, validate yourself. This is evidence of stuff that I've gone through. And he says, in my mind, he showed him and I walking down the wedding aisle. And he says, I gave you away, didn't I? And then I said out loud, oh my God, my brother just died. My brother just died. And the nurses behind me said, oh, Shelia, you're nuts with all this metaphysical stuff. But they wanted all my books about the doctors that have crossed over and come back and is starting to come to light. This is 2012. Okay. And so what happened, within the hour, I was able to verify that's exactly what happened. And there's a whole bunch of things that he did. But personally, what he did with me is that I went and picked up my other sister in Penyan. And that night, all of a sudden, I heard on my phone, angelic and kind of space age music. I said, what the heck's going on? And he loved Hearts of Spade, like, Star Trek stuff. He was a metaphysical researcher, so he believed in all this stuff that I know now, that he laughs at me about it. This is my brother, George. Right. And he's the one that had the radio show. Okay. Over 4,000 tape shows. Yep. And so we used to say, yeah, he's just crazy, years and years ago. So what happened was that I could turn that phone off and that music was still playing for 2 weeks. And he did the same thing to his daughter's phones. All right. And he did with some of the other family members. And when we went to the funeral, in Albany, my brother Bob, the one that died in 19, was so angry because my sister Karina and I were saying, well, that's George. And the music woke him up in the middle of the night and he threw that phone. And he says, you have to go back to Verizon and get and phone fixed, and we laughed because we knew it was him. Yeah. And so that was for 2 weeks. And what happened was when I got back, I went to a spirit board class and some of my teachers that were teaching me mediumship and stuff like that. And George came through and he validated, he told through the other people, the dates that he died, first of all, his name, the date that he died, and then also that he was going to be there when my cat passed over. He didn't know anything about my cat having problems, and it was the next month. My other two sisters did. So it was like they know things, they're always with you. So what I want to tell you about my brother Bob, so it was in 2019, right before Christmas is when he passed, right? And it was last summer, I was at Unity Hospital with another friend doing healing on somebody that was almost going to be a paraplegic. And I knew she wasn't going to be Katie, my friend Katie. I knew she wasn't going to. And then, so, we were on the east side and we went all the way to the west side of Rochester and we went out to dinner. And I said to her, where did you want to go? Because I used to live on the west side. And she goes, I don't care. I said, well, let's go to the Brook House and Red Fideli.
Yeah.
So we went there. And as soon as we sat down, right across from us was the person that he didn't want at his funeral, Tommy. Now, Tommy and another guy that he didn't want at the funeral, they came to the funeral.
Yeah.
Yeah. I talked to his son and he said, absolutely. They helped grow me up and stuff like, help raise me. So they were there, so they heard what I said, what Bob said, it's all about love, kind of like a healing. So almost 4 years later, we walk in and they're right across. And him and his wife were celebrating their 50th wedding anniversary.
How nice. Yeah.
No coincidence that we went to the Brook House. They told me, and I could hear Bob the whole time talking to me. Brook House, we had lots of fun there. So I went there. And as soon as I seen Tommy, him and we started crying. I got up and I went and hugged him, whatever. And then when I came and sat down, Michelle and I was eating. And all of a sudden I took a sip of my coffee and my brother comes from behind me around Michelle, goes over to Tommy and gives him a big hug. And Michelle says, are you okay? Because I was drinking coffee. And I said, my brother's here. He just went and hugged Tom. And so, he just kind of went like this when he was eating. He didn't know what was going on. So we went outside afterwards and he says, Sheila, he says, I have been thinking about Bob the last couple of days. He says, I cannot believe that I was able to make amends, for the stuff that happened between them.
Yeah.
And I says, Tommy, I said, don't you get it? I says, he had me come here. I live over on the east side. I haven't been over on this side in 11 years at Brook House to Red's house, Red.
Yep, Fideli. Yeah.
And I said, there's no coincidence. I says, he came and he wanted to wish you guys and give you a gift, a big hug for your 50th wedding anniversary. This stuff you can't make up.
No, but if you say it, Sheila, you sound like a lunatic. Do you know what I'm saying? Like people got it, but
it happened.
But it doesn't matter because I don't know why, but I think the person you're talking about absolutely believed that that's what happened.
Well, it did.
Yeah, I believe it happened.
It
I mean,
does.
I do, but I'm saying say that to some people and they're like,
that's right. But if you think about it, think about when you've lost somebody and all of a sudden you're thinking about them and all of a sudden you pick up something or find someone that theirs. That's evidence too. But people don't want to, that's spooky. And I'm not going to believe that. But a lot of that stuff is coming out now. And you can connect with your loved ones.
I don't think that there's any coincidences in life anymore. I don't think there's any accidents. I think that everything is sort of, I don't know if it's already done. I don't know. There's people who say it's all done. Everything's happened. You're just looking at a memory is just a different perspective on what had happened. I don't know. But the only thing I had recently was I wanted to get, I was looking for a book for one of the guys on the podcast, and down at the bottom, they made a suggestion for another one. And the book is called, Don't Believe Everything You Think. It's the beginning and ending of suffering is thinking. The beginning and ending of suffering is thinking. So I thought, I got to get that book. And I didn't write down the title. I didn't write down anything. And I meet with a group of guys once a month or so. I call them my wise counsel. I think I've told you about that. Yeah. So I go to this breakfast. Did I tell you this story already?
Yeah, but go ahead. Say it
that's
again,
right. So I get there and I can't remember the name of the book. And the guy goes into another room, comes out with it. And I'm like, oh my God, that's the book. And then because my plan was I was going to Barnes and Noble after the breakfast to get the book. And I go, well, that wasn't an accident.
No,
that wasn't an accident. I need to get that book for people. And I don't know what that is.
That's right. That's what I'm talking about. The energy field is different now. And it's purposely on different. And that's the energy that's here now. And what I said, what's come out in the last 6 months, what we have seen played out in the world,
Yeah.
okay, is showing the things that have been held from us, all right, the conspiracy theories and stuff like that, that whenever we come out and talk about it, they say, oh, it's just conspiracy theories, but it's the opposite way around. It is, but it's all trying to get you confused. Just like these drones that we talked about, it's all about fear.
Yeah.
How when you're thinking that we're being invaded.
Right.
But there's so much more behind it, and it's coming, the truth is coming out. So the truth is, with that book, is that what is being revealed has always been here. It's the spiritual side. It's the higher frequency side.
Mhm.
Just like they say, the revelation, Jesus coming back, and
Mhm.
all the Christians believe this is what's
Yeah.
happening. Well, what's coming back is the spiritual awakening, is the power that we have inside to use that. And intuition and knowing things, your gut feeling,
Yeah.
is the spiritual part of your DNA
Right.
that you have.
Okay.
All right. It's scientific, a lot of scientific stuff, and that's what's going to come out. It's going to show it, just like with Kennedy, with all the pesticides and all the food, the stuff in our food. And we've known, and we've been trying to get it out.
Right.
But of course, we've been controlled that we
Yeah.
couldn't.
Right.
Now things are opening up and things are going to change. It's going to be rocky, but it's going to open up and it's going to be better. It's just the fear. So that's what my job is, to help people learn that it's okay and you can feel all these emotions, which is great, but nothing can hurt you unless you allow it.
Yeah.
That's where
Yeah.
taking responsibility
Yeah.
and taking action. And a lot of people, they can't take action because they don't know how.
So, okay, that's a right there is, I think, the
They don't know how.
point, right? So
And they've been told
how,
that this stuff is crazy.
right? So how do you? Because I'm a big believer, and I say things like life is never going to stop coming at you, right? It's never going to stop coming at you. So, but I also believe there is no meaning to any of this other than the meaning you attach to it. So, but no one, and then sure, somebody says something, you can be in a bad mood, your feelings are hurt, or somebody does something and it pisses you off or whatever, and you can say, I'm this way because you blanked.
Because they have to blame somebody else.
Right. But the truth, I believe, is there's no assertion. And yet we allow assertion. Like we'll say, well, the boss made me, or the whatever, but there's no assertion. There's really no assertion here. And that's a nice and easy thing to say, but a hard concept, I think, to sometimes really truly buy into. Would that,
Well,
yeah?
yeah, it's coming though.
And
It's coming
yeah, and I think that, okay. And
to understand it all.
yeah. And when you, like, I believe we all have the power. I had a weird thing the other day. You get me to say stuff I would never say. But
Well, a lot of people didn't know that about me, but it's true. I mean, you can't take those stories away from me because they happened to me.
yes.
And also the coworkers started talking to me, coworkers at the hospital with my
Yeah,
brother.
right.
Stuff that we've always known. In the healthcare, we see people die, we see things, and we can't tell people about it. One of the doctors says, do you see auras? Do you know about the chakras?
Yeah.
It's like, my grandmother told me when I was a kid, I was going to be a healer. And this guy was from the East, Eastern or whatever.
Mhm.
And so, and towards a couple of days before the day before he died, doctors came to me that wasn't the regular doctor and says, we're worried about the fever. And then my brother's yelling at me. He said, I don't give a fuck about the fever.
Yeah.
They have to listen to the power of attorney that I don't want any life support. And they're trying to keep me alive. And I know working in healthcare is so that they can, he was an organ donator. Okay. Why they were doing that. But he was like, he was in control. He was a Marine. He wanted, and it wasn't only me. And the doctor says, yeah, I know. I can feel it. He can feel what the energy in the room, that he was and also she said, I seen he was a very powerful man. And, his wishes aren't being abided by. I says, yeah. I says, so we have to, talk to my nephew, whatever. So people are waking up to it, but they don't want to admit it. And I remember when I first was placed on the IV services, the manager that I had, it's a long story, but anyway, she says, you're the right person because you've been through it. And a lot of the young nurses have never been through it. So you can help them deal with, the anger and the feelings that they have that they didn't save their person. All right. But a lot of times those persons were ready to go.
Yeah. Right.
But their role as, do no harm, always,
Yes.
try to
Right.
heal.
Yes. Yes.
It's like people are here for a certain amount of time, and it is for those lessons.
Mhm.
And when we start to look at those lessons and realize that the power that we have to use those lessons or not.
Mm.
All right. So your grandfather, and your parents and stuff like that, and your own awakening is happening. And by you showing other people your awakening by having these kind of podcasts about enlightenment,
Yeah.
enlightenment, you're opening up to who you really are and helping everybody else.
Well, I believe this. I believe that, as we've said, it's nothing but love, right? And it's a higher
about love.
frequency. You're still here, just on a different frequency. I can't.
Exactly.
Right. I would think that you can have heaven on earth if you don't have to wait to die to live that way.
Exactly.
And I think that that's part of the thing, but we get bogged down. And I always think now, well, we've been programmed wrong.
Exactly.
That's how I see things.
Exactly.
So with all that, but go back to where you're, like you have all the power, like we have all the power. And I was starting to say to you, I was listening to something the other day, and it was a stream. They're saying, you get in the stream, but you control that stream of how it
Exactly.
goes. And I had this wild, nutty vision of myself standing there and just kind of moving my hands around and moving things like you would on an iPad or a giant screen. And I'm just going to put this here and I'm going to put this here. And I go, that's the kind of power we actually have if we get to the right frequency. Excuse me.
Yeah.
And I thought, that sounds kind of kooky. And if you say that to somebody, like you could just do this and that, I'm not saying we have to, the grind and the hard work and all that stuff. I'm not so sure that is necessary, and it is, but when you get into the zone, it's easy.
Oh, yeah.
In the
Exactly.
zone, it's easy. And so you can go, but the word grind has such a negative connotation to it.
Yeah.
And I
It's
don't,
work.
yeah. And I don't think you have to feel that way. I think you have to probably do the same steps, but you could do them with a lighter heart, and you'll see that it's actually easier and things can move, and you can just kind of, I'm moving my hands around. Move your hands around and just go, okay, I'm
And
putting
so
this
what are you
over here.
doing right now?
I'm
You're
pushing
bringing-
energy.
You're the energy.
Yeah.
It's all
Yeah.
about energy.
Yeah.
And that's what you're doing.
But I would always say to people, think of yourself as, just put your hands sort of like this, and you can feel the heat. I have heat that comes off me.
That's right.
I would always say to people, I run hot. I always am warm. I'm always warm. And when you do this, I can feel it. And then I try to go out and out and out and out and out. And then sometimes I'll just shoot that energy somewhere. I don't know if I'm doing anything. It sounds crazy. And I don't normally admit these things.
You are. And so, okay, this is good. So I teach this. I teach integrated energy therapy.
Mm-hmm.
And there's 3 different levels. And each of those levels, you are tuned, and your mom knows about this, about Reiki, to that frequency. When we get to the advanced frequency, we talk about more of the energy work. And once you start to work on yourself and expand your energy field, you have a field, all right, that is around you, and you can change what is going to happen. All right. Or so a lot of people say manifest. I want to manifest.
Yes.
Manifesting is about the energy being in the field, the right synchronicity
Yes.
and serendipity.
Yes.
So when you follow the inner core, things that you say, nah, I'm not comfortable going down that road or whatever, and then you see why afterwards, that's building your knowledge, your understanding of the power that you have inside.
Yeah.
All right. So we all have it. So once we go and we learn all this stuff, then things start to happen. All right. Your awakening gets stronger and stronger, and the right people come into your environment, comes in to help you. That's why we talked before we started about, the fear of lack of, and really just stand and you're going to be okay. You're not alone.
Right.
You're going to be okay. And this is how it's supposed to be. But it's also learning skills for yourself, learning that you can see back before, and then also have confidence now. Okay, I'm going to be okay. I really feel it in the gut. Learning to feel that power within inside you.
So
And you can ask, put it out there into the field. Please bring somebody to
yeah,
me.
yeah. Okay.
Prayer.
So I don't know.
I know it's
I hesitate.
hard.
Well, no, it's not. I see things. My father used to always jokingly say to me, "The sun always shines where you walk, Willie. The sun always shines where you walk." And I have to say, Sheila,
It is.
I've never. I mean, I have. I've had a charmed life.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, and things have always worked out. But I've had different things happen over the years. I was married, and my wife's uncle came to visit, and he brought his girlfriend at the time, and she was a healer, or I don't really know because I'm very naive. And she said to me when she was doing something, she's like, "You have a lot of energy. You could be a healer. You're a healer. You're a healer," is
We're
what
all
she said.
healers.
And I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh," she's like, "But you've got like it's there, it's there." And I've been told by other people, you have great energy. I never knew. I don't know what that is, but I've never, at my core, my true self is a very loving, fun, playful person. That's who I am. I know that at my core, at my absolute core. But I've had anger issues, I've had different things. And I'll ask you this, because you talked about your brother and anger, and anger can be something that is the word that just popped in my head is repulsive in a way, right? To other people. It can be very scary, and people absorb it differently. Again, how you're programmed, right? I mean,
Okay. Yeah. And so, I did say about my classes, the first and second class kind of explains those energy fields of anger,
uh-huh.
shame, resentment, fear, all guilt, and that's what understanding
Yeah.
how the body, the scientific part about it.
Uh-huh.
And a lot of people don't want to believe that, but it is science, the energy field of us.
Yes. So now you kind of ticked me off my path, but
I'm sorry.
But no. This is great. I would say that you're going up the emotional scale, that anger is better than despair.
Yes.
Okay. That's sort of what I'm saying. So when I
Yes.
say for people reach for the better, sometimes anger is the better feeling thought, as much as that sounds counterintuitive. I think that's sort of the
What's
truth.
what you do with it?
Well, exactly. So here's my question. There are medicines and things that people take, and I have come to
I know
believe
where you're going. Yeah.
that in certain ways it gives you a moment to almost step outside yourself, just that beat you need to go, instead of the knee-jerk reaction. Let's say something really fires you up and you just turn around and go kaboom into a wall. Silly. But okay. And what does that do for everybody else around there? It scares the shit out of them.
Mhm.
What is this? Unhinged? But if sometimes, and I don't know if, because I go, we're just pumps and pipes inside our body, right? Right?
Yeah.
I mean, how many times have we heard about the person? Yeah, they went in and I was 90% clogged. They put in stints. It's like your bathroom sink.
Bingo.
You know? Yeah.
Bingo.
So we're pumps and pipes, and that sometimes we have sediment builds up. Okay. But with the anger, does it give you a chance and the energy to sort of step back? And should it be seen as a tool and not so much as a dependency? I don't know if I'm saying it clearly, but sometimes we hear things like, well, I don't want to be dependent on something. I don't want to be on the medicine. I don't want to be this. I don't want to be that. It's a weakness. It's this. And my thinking is it a tool to give you the clarity of the moment and see that I don't need to do this? It gives you just a chance to step outside yourself, that maybe you've been so programmed that everything is knee-jerk, that this is almost a gift in a way. But I don't know if I'm sounding nutty.
No.
Oh, I'm sure I'm sounding nutty.
So we're
But
talking about two different things. So we're talking
Okay.
about science.
Yes.
We're talking about chemicals to
Yes.
help you feel better, but also you're talking about the energy field of the kids. All right. And how you are raising him. You're
Yeah.
raising him right,
Yeah.
by the way. All right. Because you're picking up, using the tools that you have. And a lot of people don't have those tools the parents that we had before or whatever.
Mhm.
So that kind of shows the energy that's changing here. We have help now. All right. We also have science. We have
Yes.
modern science, and then we have alternative science, holistic, which also is help. So when we talk about being anger, all right, and how do you change that? When I said before about being heart math, all
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
heart math is about making the connection of stress and trauma and building resilience against that stress or that anger or that fear. Right. So a lot of times in the mental health health practice, they do many, many different things. They do also EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprogramming. So that's very good. And they usually use that for post-traumatic stress or people that have fear, anger, fear, and to release that. A lot of that time, that stuff is stuck in the pituitary gland. Right. So when we go through all this stuff of evolving in our life issues, it does chemical stuff to our bodies. All right. And sometimes it changes the chemistry of the brain. So that's why sometimes people need to have medicine to change that, which is great.
Yes.
But there's sometimes it is more of the emotional layer, meaning the energy layer. That's what's happening in the life situation. All right. Programming, how you relate to people, your belief system. And so, doctors, sometimes friends have actually invited people to come to me. And heart math is about changing the heart variability rate of your frequency of your body, of fixing the blood pressure, okay, and having you feel calm and relaxed. But what it's doing, it is opening up to your consciousness field of the power that you have inside. So it uses the energy of the heart and the mind, thinking, of just being in the moment, all right, and think of things that bring you love and joy and appreciation, all right. At the same time, you just slow down your breathing and you into relax mode and you think about things that make you happy. So the heart and the brain connection is very, very powerful. And there's many people that, do yoga and all the other stuff they talk for you to do. It doesn't cost you anything, but it's learning to do that and understanding that it is out there and there is help out there. And that's what I like about the energy work that I teach and I do. It's all about heart center. It's about going with inside, the love inside yourself, but also allowing your DNA, your body, to heal itself. But you need to be taught it. So a lot of people aren't aware of it. All they're aware of is seeing the chemicals and this is the way you have to do,
Right.
because they don't want to know that there's other ways. It's money, profit, all that other stuff. But what I have said is that things are changing. It is coming out and we're seeing it play out and there's more coming out and it's all good. It is going to change. The world is going to change. Yeah. But it's for the good. And it's the way you look at it. And a lot of people we talk about the dimensions, the 3D and the 5D. And we're actually in the 4D right now for us talking about this. The people that become aware or enlightened, that they know that there's more to us than our meat suits and what's in it.
Right.
We are spiritual beings. All right. And we do have the ability.
I've had people tell me that this is 2% of what you are, or 3% of what you are.
Bingo, it is. It's
and,
called
and they go, isn't it amazing that they can get 2% of in
so the
it's so weird, Sheila. It's weird, and I'm so like, that's why I want to do this. I feel like the Billightenment stuff that I want to make it a separate podcast, and I'm trying to figure out how to do this.
Well, I'm with you.
So
I'm with you all the way.
But I feel like I have to do this. Like I have to do this. I don't know why I have to do this.
Because it's part of your passion and your mission, what you're here to do.
Yeah.
It's the same with my life. It's the same thing. When I look back, and I have no doubt this is what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
But it's also my evolution that I've seen my path grow to understand it. All right.
Right.
And I mean, we can get a whole discussion about that, but it is enlightenment. it's the frequency.
Yeah.
And 3D is the way they've always done, history and anger and wars and stuff like that. And the 5D is a different dimension. So that's what you're going to hear about, the new dimension. All right. And it's a higher frequency. And that is where your spirit, your families go. All they do is just change dimension.
Yeah. I believe that. And I think for people, I always go back to radio. You can't hear what's on 92.5 when you're listening to 96.5.
Exactly.
Right.
And
but you can raise your vibration. And sometimes what happens is you could be around people on a lower vibration. You just don't even see them. You don't even interact with them. It just doesn't happen. And I go, I know this sounds very, very strange, but I feel like, Shelia, that now I hear things in music. I hear words. I hear things. I go, they've been trying to tell us this. The enlightened people have been trying to tell us this forever.
This is your DNA. This is the frequency of your chromosomes. We talked about it before, is that science shows that we have 23 chromosomes, human chromosomes.
Right.
And they've known about the physical and the emotional part by different testings, whether you're introvert, extrovert, how you relate to things, whatever. But there's more to it. And since 2012, in the science world, all right, it showed and approved, heart math showed when we had the Twin Towers come down, and that we were all together. We were all one after it hit, because we were all in that frequency of compassion, all right? That kind of proved it, that we are magnetic machines and our frequency is out there, all right? But the 24th is, our star connection, the galactic connection. We've always known that we came from someplace else, but there's a lot of help out there. And the 24th is what is awakened. So when you're talking about radio signals, when I teach people that are in this field, mediumship or spirituality or whatever, they come to me and nothing's working. Is because they're trying to tap into the old frequency.
Yeah.
All right. And since 2012, and there's a reason why, it has to do with the planets and the alignment and the actual magnetic field of the earth when it shifted, where it changed the magnetic grid. All right. And how we perceive things and how we feel things. And so it's a different frequency. So understanding to tap into that 24th.
Yeah.
And that's your intuition. That's your knowing. I don't know why I know this, but I know this. That's used to scare the heck out of me. Is that I knew when my mother-in-law was going to die. It was the same day that my sister was killed 3 years before. I mean, this is when I first got sober. All this stuff was coming to me. I said, how the hell do I know this stuff? But it was part of my awakening that I knew. And when I share, if I do a meeting or whatever, online or whatever, I share the spiritual part about it. And it's about the power that we have inside. We all have it. I can explain it now scientifically. I couldn't back 31 years ago when I got sober for alcoholism. And I started back in 85 there's something going on here and I have to start working on myself. When I started my recovery journey. But instead of the recovery, being a recovery metaphysician, people always think it's addictions. And it can be, because I do have that background, but it's about getting stuck with, why do I keep doing and feeling the same way?
Right.
And all of a sudden I feel more joy when I do this, but I don't dare because I, feel guilty or whatever. So think about that. Think about, how you're feeling. Why are you feeling that? And then also do what you don't want to do and do what you don't want to do. Meaning, don't do something that you don't really like. All right. All right. And do something that you like. And then you're going to start seeing, oh, I get it. I feel more happier. Well, I'm going to make that choice to do this and feel happier. That's where you have the power. You have the power to go within inside and waking up and know that you're not alone.
I think I find it fascinating and I believe all of it. And I do think that we've been taught wrong. And I don't.
Well, think about not being taught wrong, because that's where we were. That's how it evolves. Science, I was trained to be a nurse midwife, and we did things a lot different than 1600s, 1700s when the modern medicine started coming to play and make it more convenient for,
Yeah.
doctors to lay down instead of birth naturally or in
Right.
the water.
Right.
All right. So there's a lot of evolvement. The same with penicillin. We didn't know about penicillin. So think of all the stuff that we had to go through.
Right.
And it's not bad. It is part of the evolution, understanding it.
Yeah, I agree with all that, and I think we're always sort of evolving. It's sort of my problem with things like the cancel culture, which seems to have gone away a little bit. But my problem with that was, okay, if it's not so egregious, it's not physical assault. Why aren't we saying this is no longer acceptable, do better, and give a person a chance to do better and evolve?
We are.
Right. And I do think that, but I think in the beginning there was resistance to this. No, you're wrong, you're dead wrong.
Well, it's all resistance because people aren't educated or
Yeah.
understand it.
Yeah.
But once you go inside. It's always about going inside.
Yeah.
What are you feeling? We said, well, that's not the manly thing to do. I gotta do this. It's like, no, it is. It is. Think about that.
I know.
And it's the same, women are, more intuitive and all that. Men are too.
Yes.
It's just that they're taught not to tap into it.
Right.
And you can.
Yeah.
And that's where many people are enlightened.
Well, right. They are. And I want to say this, and I don't know why. I don't really know why, but I don't, people who were right now, it's the holidays, right? And it's all around the birth of Jesus.
Yes.
If you're a Christian, and even Hanukkah with the Jewish, which they don't believe that he's the son of God. But I would say that I don't ever want somebody to think that you look down upon a religion or whatever.
No,
it's
all about love.
Yeah, I have no problem with that. I just think that sometimes there's a restrictor plate that doesn't need to be there. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah.
It's like we're trying to put a governor on the motor of life and tell you have to do this and you can't. I don't think that there's a hell. Do I think that there's evil? Yeah. I mean, there's a very simple philosophy that would say there is no evil. It's just the privation of good. It's a very simple philosophical, but I'm trying to remember who that was. It might have been St. Thomas Aquinas. But that was just the way things were. And I think that's more true than we believe, because even the people that we see shunned in society and stuff, or I'll tell you this, here we go. So
yeah,
Jesus Christ.
I know.
I've told you, and I've been very open on the podcast, that I've been substitute teaching.
Right.
And sometimes I will substitute in what's called a co-talk class. And so you've got kids there that just need a little more prompting or whatever. And I can see that some of those kids were the ones that would be the wild troublemakers. And I saw this girl, and I went over, and she sat alone by herself in the back. And I could tell that there was something not wrong. I know that's not the term, but that she could probably cause some trouble according to the standards of the school.
Exactly.
Okay?
I get you.
Yeah. So I went back there and I worked with her on this math, and we went through, and she was laughing at me because I had to look some things up to remember certain formulas and things. But we went through and we got it. And then when I went back in the class again, she said, hey. And then one day I'm down in the main office, just like, hey, you helped me with that study for that quiz, and I did really well. Thanks so much. And blah, blah, blah. And then one day I'm talking to the person who's the head of subs, and she said, you really make a great connection with these kids. It's very well noticed. And she brings up that girl specifically, and she goes, man, she was a wild one last year with blah, 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 blah. And I could see it, but I knew underneath it's not. She's not. She's not a wild one. She's a beautiful soul or whatever. I don't know, but I just could tell. And I always say that those are my people, because I was a wild one.
Exactly.
I mean, I do dumb things like climb to, I'll tell you this, and you're going to.
Well, those called labels. They labeled her.
Yeah.
And that she was, but she wasn't. But there's a lot of stuff going on, in the background, why she acts the way she does, whether it's bullying,
yes,
whether
100%.
Not looked at the same, whether it's it's usually home life.
Yeah.
What's
Yep.
happening to the
Yep.
child. That's why I say once you understand energy work, you can pick up on different things that are going on in the person's life, and then you can help them and be that hero. All right.
Well,
Help them open up.
I didn't
to who
even
they
think
really
of
are.
anything. All I'm saying, I really believe you meet people where they are. Meet people
Exactly.
where they are, not just
Exactly.
kids, but everybody. Meet them where they are. And my father used to say, and I thought it was a wonderful saying, and I wish he would really put it into practice with us when we were kids.
Uh-huh.
But he would say, you never know how somebody's day began. And he taught in the inner city of Poughkeepsie, where some mornings there was a raid in the house
Mhm.
at 3 a.m. and a dad was dragged out in handcuffs for
Yeah.
selling drugs.
Exactly.
And he said, you just never know how somebody's day began. And so that was more his way of just kind of, hey, everybody come. And I'm like, well, why can't you fucking do that with us?
Yeah.
You're always yelling at me about,
I know.
right? But that, I think that's kind of how I think of that often. I think that I don't know where somebody's coming from, but I don't need to meet them on that frequency.
Exactly.
And I don't,
What
but I
other
don't need to be
person
mean
said.
to them. I don't need to be anything. I can just be. I don't need to do anything.
Yeah.
And those are all the things that I'm realizing. And I believe that it's very true.
Oh, it's very true.
Yeah.
Very, very true. And a lot of people are becoming awakened.
Yeah.
To understand that.
Yeah.
Labels and the way, you've been taught to relate to somebody or somebody trying to influence you not to do something.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
a big one.
Yes.
And it's called manipulation.
Well, okay. So since you hit on that in particular,
We could talk about that on another podcast.
we can, but I'll just, and we'll wrap with this one.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
But I think like that's your mom, right? Your mom, but it's always coming. And I will say this all the time to people, whoever is giving you advice, they're giving it to you from a place of love, whether you believe that or not. It may come with, I would hear things like you need to have your head examined from a parent. I would hear that. Okay. But I would think that now when I think about that, that was their fear for what I was going to do and what was going to happen. And it was honestly coming from a place of love.
Exactly.
And that's why I often think, go forth and tell no one. If you have an idea, go forth and do it, because
and
other people are going to tell you from their perspective on you. And believe me, from a place of love, you're going to hear things like, good fucking luck with that one, man. Right. But, and then if you start to think about that, and I always go back to the healing of Jesus, go forth and tell no one, because the doubt seeks in. And, I would love to do a stand-up routine about that, where a guy comes back with his ear on and give it 2 weeks, Bob, that fucking ear gonna be off again. You know what I'm saying? Like, but that's the doubt. And I think that was the message in there, is you really have all the power. You've got it. You just need to step into it, as the song says. And
the wisdom within.
Yes, it's always been here, but we've been looking for it on the outside, because that's where we're told where it was.
Exactly.
And it's not. It's in here.
Exactly.
And you can figure it out.
Right. So my title as Galactic Grandmother
Mm-hmm.
is about the wisdom I have inside, like a grandmother.
Yeah.
The wisdom of giving the wisdom.
Yeah.
And it is galactic, yes, because I know it.
Yep.
And I'm here on purpose at this time to help humanity the way that it is.
And people can go get help from you by just through SheliaTillich.com.
You're right. And also at this time, I have a great holiday special where you can have one session, right? And you can actually get the second session 50% off.
Okay.
Right. And then also something I have, I teach classes how to understand energy work. And it's really important to heal yourself, understand, just like what we're talking about. What are you talking about, Sheila? This energy, you can feel it. And I teach integrated energy therapy, intensive workshops. And I have one in January and one in March.
Okay.
And that's the first 3 levels of IET. And I also teach the masters of the top level. And if you sign up or put a deposit down for one of those workshops in January, March, then you can have a free session with me.
Wonderful.
So that is before January 21st, January 31st,
okay,
the end of the year. And it's good for 6 months.
December 31st or January?
December 31st.
Yes.
But the
Yeah.
actual
When you said the end of the
class-
year, that's why.
The class in January is 17th, 18th, and 19th.
Okay.
And it's 3 full days, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And it's so that you can understand it. And then in March, it is the 28th, 29th, and 30th.
Yeah.
But if you sign up, register with a deposit, all right, then you will be able to have a session with me for free.
That's
Both of
really,
those.
that's wonderful. I would also tell people that sometimes you'll be called selfish for doing things like this, but you can't be good for anybody else if you're not good yourself. You
Exactly.
can't bring it forth.
And
Think
that's
of
about our
all the things.
self-worth.
Yes.
Our
yes,
self-worth. We
yeah.
are. And we are so worth it. And if you can't, always begins with you first. Anybody in your life, it begins with you first. Heal yourself or understand the way you think and feel, and then put the love out. It's always about the love.
It is about the love.
Love for yourself.
Yeah. Right. Love yourself because you're worth it.
You're worth it.
That's where I say again, and I feel like I am repeating myself, but I just want to throw it out there. The unconditional love, which I think humans are almost incapable, because there's always going to be that thing. If you just did this, I would love you more.
Well, that's why we're humans.
Right. Right.
You know?
But the universe loves you unconditionally.
Absolutely.
And whatever you
That's
believe, it will support. If you believe that you're broken, it'll support that. If you believe that you're something else, it'll support that.
That's the energy.
Yeah.
Yep.
But you've got to, and you can change that.
You
can change all that, because all you have
Get
to do,
unstuck.
you just have to step into the power, as the song says right here. Sheila, it's always fun when you're in.
I love it.
I feel
love
so
it.
much better.
Don't
after
you?
Yeah, I do. I feel so much better after
Positive.
talking to you.
Positive frequency.
Right. It's a positive frequency. Sheila's on it. Go to SheilaTillich.com. That's TILLICH, correct? SheilaTillich.com. Thank you for joining us for another session of Billightenment.
Grab it. If you want it, you can have it. All you got to do is just reach right out and grab it. Step out up. Step into your power.